Alright guys, welcome back to another Raid Shadow Legends video. This is Ali Plays. And today we're going to be doing a list. We're going to be doing the top 10 non-void rare champions. I know you guys like me to keep the voids away from the regular champions because the void champions are usually better. So that's the reason why I'm doing this. And it's the top 10 non-void rare champions for Spider's Den. So we're going to be looking at the Spider's Den. And again, this list is for early game to mid game players. It's not for end game players. The end game players probably won't be using these champions. We have the light on. Okay. So again, this is not in order. And yeah, let's get started. So number 1 from the Undead Hordes faction, we have BANSHEE. So BANSHEE is a support champion. So she doesn't deal too much damage, but she has AoEs for days. So she has her A1 that has AoE that has a 20% chance of placing a decreased defense debuff for 1 turn. So when placing decreased defense on all the spiders and the Spider Queen, your other allies can do a lot more damage. Cursed Touch attacks all enemies, has a 50% chance of removing 1 random buff from each target. And she has a Death Ray, attacks 2 times at random. Each attack has a 50% chance of placing a block cooldown skills debuff for 1 turn. So what she's mainly used for is her A1 and her A2. And she can increase ally resistance in the arena by 52%, but that's not good for Spider's Den. So the only bad thing about her, I mean, she only made it on the list because she's a AoE champion, but the bad thing about her is she's a support champion, so she does not scale very well with damage, with attack, I mean. And her damage is based on her attack. So if she was on this, if I was ranking this, she would be a little bit on the lower end. So let's keep moving on. So we're going to move on to the Barbarians, where we have a farmable champion on this list that is very good for Spider's Den. We have Berserker. So Berserker is an attack type champion. He has a A1, all out attack, attacks one enemy field. His champion is terminated by 30% if the attack is critical. What I really like about him is his AoE, attacks all enemies 2 times, will ignore 20% of each target's defense. So that is pretty powerful. And he has a Havoc A1 that grants an extra turn if the target is killed. So if you need to get that extra turn to use his AoE again, it's a good choice. So this guy is farmable. You can get him from the campaign. You can keep farming the stage. You can build up his skills all the way to do more damage. Decrease this ability's cooldown, and he's a very good champion. Does a lot of damage. So if you guys are in the early to mid game Spider's Den, you guys can invest in this if you don't have any other better champions. And let's move on to the High Elves, where we have ELHAIN. So ELHAIN is a starter champion. You can get her just by starting the game if you choose her. So she has an A1 that attacks 1 enemy and places an extra hit if the attack is critical. She has an AoE. If she attacks 1 enemy and then all enemies, so she attacks once and then twice, she has an extra 15% chance of inflicting a critical hit. She places a 30% increased crit buff on herself for 3 turns if the target is killed. And she has an AoE here, attacks all enemy 2 times, which I really like. And she can also be used as a lead with her aura skills. Increase ally HP in all battles by 15%, so that is universal. She's going to be hitting like a truck. You can build her with lifesteal if you want. You can build her with offense, but I would recommend lifesteal to stay alive longer. Depending on what kind of composition you're running. If you already have a support that can heal like an apothecary, then you wouldn't need the lifesteal. So number 4, we're going to move over to the Knight Revenant faction, where we have a champion that a lot of people don't talk about. We have Crimson Slayer. Crimson Slayer is really good. She has an attack that attacks 3 times at random, and each hit has a 30% chance of placing a sleep debuff for 1 turn, so she can put the spiders to sleep. She requires a lot of skill books, but she is worth it because she's an attack champion. And she can also reduce turn meter on the Spider Queen. She attacks 1 enemy, has a 70% chance of decreasing the target's turn meter by 50%. And she fills her turn meter equal to the amount the target loses, which is very, very good. It can be a 100% chance when you max out her skills. So I would highly recommend maxing out her skills. I am working on mine so I can do a guide in the future. But just slowly because I don't want to waste a lot of energy. Slowing down a bit on the energy spending. I'm just using the energy I get from the game. Copious Bleach, she has another AoE that has an 80% chance of placing a 50% heal reduction debuff for 1 turn. So heal reduction doesn't really help, but it is an AoE that can do a lot of damage. And then her aura skill is the faction aura skill, so that's not going to be viable in Spider's Den. But yeah, she is very, very good. She'd be pretty high on my list if I was doing them in order. So at number 5, we're still in the Knight Revenant faction. We have Gladiator. So Gladiator is an attack type champion. He's most likely, you guys use him for food, I know. I use him for food as well. So Cleaving Axe, he attacks one enemy 2 times. Has a 30% chance of placing a 50% decreased attack debuff for 2 turns. The target's turn is more than or exactly 50% full. He has a 30% chance of placing a decreased speed debuff for 2 turns. The target's turn is less than 50% full. So you can apply decreased attack on the Spider Queen or decreased speed, which are both viable for spiders then. Capital Punishment, he attacks 2 times at random and has 80% chance of placing a stun debuff if the target's turn is above or equals 75%. So yeah, you're going to be able to stun the spiderlings with this. Hopefully you can stun 2. And then he has his torture ability. He attacks all enemies. It's an AoE on a 4-turn cooldown and maxed out. So this guy scales very well with attack. He's an attack type champion and he's a force affinity. So if you guys don't have a force affinity champion, he's a solid choice. And guess what? We're staying on to the Knight Revenant. We have Executioner as well. So Executioner is farmable. You can farm his skills. You don't have to use skill books on him. He has a stun on his basic attack, so that can come in clutch if you need to stun one of the spiderlings. He has an AoE that decreases the turn meter by 20%. That's huge in Spider's Den. Spider's Den, you're going to need a lot of AoEs, and decreased turn meter really helps. And you can place a decreased speed as well on old enemies, so that is very, very good for Spider's Den. He is definitely top tier for the rares, non-void rares for Spider's Den. Shieldtron, I think that's how you pronounce it, places the increased defense buff and a counterattack buff on himself for 3 turns. So if this guy is a target for these spiders, he's going to wreck them. So yeah, build this guy with a lot of defense and lifesteal, and he's going to stay alive and destroy them. Also, he can be used as a lead because he has an aura skill to increase ally defense in all battles by 17%. Let's move on to the Dark Elves. We have another starter on the list. We have KAEL. So KAEL has his A1 is called Dark Bolt. Attacks one enemy, has an 80% chance of placing a 2.5% poison debuff for 2 turns. So that poison will actually help you melt down the spider over time. And then he has an AoE that has a extra 15% chance of inflicting a critical hit. And he fills the turn meter of the champion by 25% for each enemy killed. So if he's killing a lot of spiderlings, if you build him with a lot of offense, he's going to be moving. He's going to be going very often and dealing a lot of damage. And then his Acid Rain ability, his Disintegrate ability, attacks 4 times at random and has a 40% chance of placing 5% poison debuff for 2 turns. So he is very viable. He has an aura skill that's universal, increase ally HP in all battles by 15%. So he's a solid choice. Yeah, one of the best starter champions in the game, if you ask me. Let's move on to the Orcs. We've got another starter champion. We have GALEK. So GALEK has a double hit on his basic attack. He has an AoE that has an extra 15% chance of inflicting a critical hit, and he plays a 30% increased speed buff on his champion for 2 turns. That is very good. And he attacks 4 times at random and has a 30% chance of placing a 30% decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. And he has a 30% chance of placing a 60% decreased defense debuff if the target has more than 2 debuffs. And he has a universal aura skill, increase ally HP in all battles, as all of the starter champions do. They will have the same aura skill. So here's the thing, I can't throw an Aethel in here, but I'm just going to throw her in there as an honorable mention. She is very good for Spider's Den because she has an AoE. She can basically cleanse herself from the poisons with her A3 ability. It doesn't have a cleanse, but it basically uses an ability and she gets to go again. But I'm not putting her on my list. I don't want to put all the starters on my list, but she is an honorable mention. So we're going to go back to the Barbarians. We're going to talk about this champion again. I always have to talk about them, Berserker and WARMAIDEN. So WARMAIDEN is very good. She has poison on her basic attack. She attacks one enemy and places a 50% increased attack buff on herself. Places an extra hit if the attack is critical. The extra hit cannot be critical. But why we have her on here is because she has an AoE that has a 75% chance of placing 60% decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. If you haven't noticed, the other champions that were on the list have a 30% decreased defense debuff. She has the big one right here. She's an attack type champion, so she scales very well with attack. So I would highly recommend even pairing her and Berserker together. They are both farmable. You can get them from the campaign. They're basically a free-to-play player's dream. Let's move on to the Dark Elves faction, where we have number 10. We have Spirit Host. So Spirit Host really helped me complete Spider's Den in the beginning of the game. She's like a perfect champion for it. She doesn't have AoEs, but she can help your team nuke the spiders with her 50% increased attack buff and allies for 2 turns. And then also she has an ability that can remove all debuffs, so she can remove all the poisons they're going to be stacking on your team from the Spider Queen. And she can place a block debuffs buff on all enemy allies for 1 turn. So she is farmable. She is a free-to-play player's dream. She's a very good support unit. She can heal herself with a basic attack. And she has a universal speed aura skill right here. So she's a very, very solid champion. So if there is any other champions that you thought should have been on the list, let me know down in the comments section. This is my list for now. If you guys want to see me do it in ranking them from 1 to 10. Also, let me know down in the comment section. If I found the video helpful in a way, make sure you guys drop a like. And if you guys want me to do an epics list, let me know. Also the legendaries, let me know. I can do that. And if you guys are new to the channel and like what you see, then definitely hit that big red subscribe button. While you're at it, make sure you guys hit that bell icon to let YouTube know you want to stay up to date on all my latest content. And as always, I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.